AkiDwA are one of the founders of the European Network to End FGM and one of the leading groups in Ireland working around the issue of FGM. FGM stands for female genital mutilation, for those of you who might not be aware. It's the term applied to any procedure whereby part or all of a woman's external genitalia is removed for non-medical purposes. When I first heard of it, I couldn't believe that A, it was something that had ever been done, and B, it was something that was still being done. And there are nearly 6,000 women living in Ireland who have experienced FGM. And when I heard that, I couldn't comprehend that fact. And when I went looking, I found some information about AkiDwA and the work they're doing. AkiDwA provide training, they provide support, they provide information, and they're working to end the practice of FGM. The way AkiDwA work is through community health ambassadors who are volunteers who work within communities. And we are joined tonight by two of the wonderful community health ambassadors who will tell you a bit more about the work that they themselves do. We will also be hearing a story from the wonderful Candlelit Tales, who are fantastic storytellers, and I've loved going to their live events and seeing their virtual events, and I hope that you will enjoy their story, and I'd like to thank them so much for giving us their time and giving us their voices, and to everyone for joining, for giving your time and listening about this issue. I'm going to stop waffling on now and hand you over to one of AkiDwA's community health ambassadors, Rodrigue Kuaya, sorry I pronounced that wrong, who's going to give a presentation on the work that he does. So take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You want me to take over?
Yes, please.
Yeah. But yeah. Thank you so much. Like you say, my name is Rodrigue Nkwayaya, Champion of Change. Champion of Change, I'm a facilitator looking into the issue of FGM, female genital mutilation, among migrants living in Ireland, especially in direct provision. Also, Rodriguez as ambassador is working to raise awareness around and fight the problem of FGM in and FGM European network. So I'm ambassador working with the and FGM network. So I'm a facilitator working with men, empowering men in direct provision. So thank you for allowing me to speak here. We are united by a common goal, the desire to see FGM end. So glad to share with you my experience working with men in this fight against this harmful practice, cultural practice of FGM. So also, I want to learn from you, your experience, from each another, what is the experience. Talking about youth, especially, I want to share my experience. What is youth can do now to fight FGM. FGM, we know all of us, is a social and a gender norm written in the tradition of the country that practice it. FGM is linked to the issues of femininity and identity in the society where is customary. So you will see in our society they will tell you the society, the country where FGM is taking part, you will hear is our culture. Is our culture. Why you want to stop our culture? Why you don't want us to following our culture? Our culture. But no culture is bad. But when we say there is some harmful practice, and among the harmful practice, we notice FGM. So it's something we must stop. It's against human rights. It's a violation of human rights so that we are able to fight together how we can stop FGM. So FGM is closely linked to the maintenance of tradition, as mean we want to follow our ancestor, venerate our ancestor, and the social value they transmit to us. My culture, my ancestor do it, but we don't know to explain to our children why FGM, the consequence of GM. Just we want to hear from them. Is our heritage, we want to say, is something they left to us, our ancestor. So the contribution of youth to end FGM is in the dialogue, how we can break the taboo. Because FGM as a culture, we are consider it like a taboo. In our community, in our family, we can't talk about FGM because it's something a taboo. The issues, you can't bring the discussion in the family, asking our parents why FGM is taking place. So in my role as ambassador, as a facilitator, we want to break the taboo. What we do, we empower men or women living in direct provision, using tools to bring the issues of FGM, which is a harmful traditional practice. So what we do, we use tools, and among the tools, I can enumerate some, like body map. We draw a man or a woman, we name all the parts of the body, and they will ask everyone, the participant, to name the body, the part of the body, sorry. So after we'll ask, if they cut your one part of our body, how do you feel? So from there, we can bring the issue of female genital mutilation. We have like human rights issues. What is human rights? How human rights is in our country, how human rights is practiced here. What do you think about human? Just compare human rights. It means the way you cut part of the private part of the body, how do you feel? Is against human rights. So the contribution of youth to end FGM is in the dialogue, how we can break the taboo. As youth, the youth have a central role to play if FGM can continue, who can stop. Particular, youth are directly affected by the problem, because the youth, they are the future generation, they are parents, they are decision maker in our community. The future of tomorrow is under the youth hand. So they are in the center. How, if they want to continue or to stop with FGM, to end FGM. So they are the youth. Obviously, we see them. If we see the youth now getting involved in the fight against FGM, is a matter of protecting their self and protecting others from FGM counting. It's about the youth to make their voice, and in the society where the practice can be deeply rooted and a little bit questioned, why FGM is taking place. And we know that all of us, FGM is to control the woman, is power and control. And you will see in the country where FGM is taking place, men doesn't want to marry a woman who didn't go through the practice. So they want to control sexually the woman. So for us now, seeing youth involving in and FGM is sorry, something we must support them, support youth to end FGM, because they are in the center of the decision. They are the future of our world. Youth also are going to enter in the world of sexuality. It is also important to be able to release taboos by talking about sexuality. So when we say about cultural things in our family, African family, to say about sex is a taboo. Talking about FGM is a taboo. But for now, youth have opportunity to bring the issues in their community, in our community, in our family, to discuss with our parents. Why FGM? Why you, my mom, you know that you suffer from FGM? Why you want me also to be suffer? And if we bring the issue on the table, I think everyone can understand that FGM is a harmful practice. FGM is against human rights. FGM is something everyone can say no. So, in a generational dialogue strategy, promote legacy for youth to be able to speak out to the old people, to give their opinion and to develop the idea about FGM. Youth brings awareness of the importance of their voice, how they can change the world, living together in the community. So I want to insist here, to underline here, the importance of intergenerational dialogue as a way to shift the taboo on FGM, explore different action of intergenerational dialogue as a as a strategy to end FGM through community. You must understand why FGM is practiced, why mothers who have often suffered themselves decide to inflict this suffering on their daughters in turn, and why does the majority of the population support it? Those questions are necessary to make people aware of alternative solution and to lift the immense weight of taboo that continue to prevail in our community. We must talk, come out, raise awareness in our family, in our community. Together, we can do more. FGM is a cultural harmful practice. No culture is bad in our way, but something is bad, we can put it out and continue with the right one. Thank you to allow me to talk, to speak to you. I'm there and I can learn from you, from your experience. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for speaking. And that's a wonderful title, Champion for Change. Thank you for being a champion for change. Thank you so much. Next, we now have our storytelling from Candlelit Tales, and Saoirse Hegarty will be a mythical tale, the Irish tradition. We'll just see if we can.
I think since we're running a tiny bit ahead of schedule, and we've got flying through, oh yeah, they might just be setting up there.
Can you see us and can you hear us?
We can see you, we can hear you.
Amazing. I'm going to put my phone down so that we don't get some kind of feedback situation, and then we're going to start, if that's okay with you guys.
Perfect.
Can I just say it's an amazing set you guys have?
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much for inviting us to be part of this AkiDwA event against female genital mutilation and FGM, and it's great to be asked, it's great to be invited, it's great to be along, and it's great to be here in Sandyford Studios, where they have just an amazing place for storytelling, for music, for presentations, and are very kindly donating the space to us as well this evening for this event. So, we're talking about culture here, and we're talking about how no culture is good and no culture is bad, and I have to say I very much agree, because what we do is we work with the stories of our culture. And there's bits of culture that can get lost as well. They get submerged for a while and then they come back up to light and you see them in a new way. And the story I'm going to tell you tonight is a story that we were asked to tell. But I think it's an appropriate story. Because you see, some people in Ireland will say that the Irish are, the Irish, like, people who are dangerously pale and can't be let out in the sunlight lest we singe. But the interesting thing in Irish myth is that there is no creation myth for the Irish people. There's no such thing as the Irish people. There is this island, and there are the people who came here from somewhere else. And they all brought their culture with them. Good and bad and indifferent. All the good bits, all the bad bits. And we're sorting that out right now. And we always have been, and we probably always will be. Now, there are those who will tell you that the Celts were the original inhabitants of Ireland, but we know that's not true. A lot of people who have a kind of a passing familiarity with Irish myth will say it was the Tuatha Dé Danann, the godlike people. That's not true either. Because before the Tuatha Dé Danann came to Ireland, there were the Firbolg. And before the Firbolg, there were the Nemedians. And before the Nemedians, there were the Partholonians. Don't worry, there's not going to be a quiz after this. This isn't important. The important thing is, before all of those people, before even the Fuiwira, the people who lived under the sea and around it and raided the island, took what they wanted, somebody had to be first. And the person who was first was a woman named Kesser. Kesser came from a place called the Isle of Merrow. Today it's called Sudan. She was a powerful woman in her own right, and she was an important woman. Her grandfather, he's connected to a different story. He's connected to a different myth. Because some say her grandfather was a priest of Egypt, and others say her grandfather was a prophet named Noah. And Noah heard a foretelling that a great flood was going to come and wash away all the sin of the world. And so he started to build an ark. And Kesser heard the same thing, but she did not want to go on the ark with Noah. Noah had certain ideas about the place that women should have, and Kesser didn't agree with him. So she started building her own ark. Now on Noah's ark, Noah gathered all of the animals of the world 2 by 2, or so we're told. But the only people he wanted on his ark were his own family. Every family has a black sheep, though. And in Noah's family, the black sheep was Bith, who was a thief, and Kesser's father. That was another reason why Kesser didn't want to get on Noah's ark. She knew her father wasn't perfect, but leaving him behind was a bit holier than thou. This whole thing that Noah had going on was, actually. So she went to her father instead, and she said, "You can come on my ark, you know. You and my brother Ladra, because Ladra is a pilot and will be needing pilots to steer. But you need to forsake the God of Noah, and you need to follow me. And we need to understand each other. This is not going to be a situation where any men have any control over any women. This is going to be a situation where I'm in charge and everybody else listens to me." Now, Bith and Ladra didn't have much of a choice. They believed this flood was coming, although many did not. And they knew they didn't have a place on the Ark of Noah. And so they joined Kesser. They swore to follow her. They swore to follow her vision. Because Kesser's vision was not just that there would be a flood, but also that there was a place that was empty, a place that was open, a place uninhabited and untouched. And if the angry God of Noah was out to drown the world, he wouldn't pay attention to it. A small island, far away, shrouded in mist and cloud, a place no angry God would look upon. So Kesser started to build her ark. Now she must have had a more persuasive touch. Maybe she was a better storyteller, but a lot of people came to Kesser looking to join her. A lot of them were women. Women from all the tribes of the world. Women named Alba and German, women named Espa, women from all over the world, and every shade of colour was on their skin. And they asked Cesaire if they could come with her. Cesaire took them if they had a skill. She took in warriors. She took in expert craftswomen. She took in those who could weave. She took in those who could hunt. She took in those who could build. And soon it became clear that her ark was not going to be big enough for all of them, because every day more arrived. And so she built a second ark, and then a third. 3 times 50 women gathered under Cesaire's banner, but only 3 men. Her brother Ladra, the pilot, her father Bith, the thief, and a young man named Fintan, a friend of her father's, another ne'er-do-well, but he had a look about him that Cesaire liked, so she let him on the ship as well. And when they were ready, when their preparations were finally made, they set sail. But that was only the beginning of their troubles. Their voyage lasted 7 long years. They sailed to the Mediterranean. They made their way to the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. They sailed around those inland seas. But there was no island. That place that Cesaire was dreaming of, that place that was empty and uninhabited. Everywhere they went, there were people, and everywhere there were people, there was something for an angry god to take offense at. And so they sailed on. They sailed up a river till they saw mountains so high they touched the sky. They turned around, they sailed back again. And they sailed through narrow straits and out into the wide ocean, the true ocean. And there they were met by a terrible storm. And the waves of this terrible storm were as high as the great peaks of the mountains they had seen. The thunder flashed, the lightning crashed, and these mountainous waves towered up above them and crashed down onto them, overturning 2 of her ships, scattering women to the waves, women who did not make the crossing. And with 1 boat left, the storm died down. Cesaire turned her sights to the north. And she thought she could see something on the horizon. It might have been cloud, and it might have been an island. And as they got closer and closer, they could see the shape of it resolving. And it was as if the mist itself was becoming land, green and cloud covered, temperate and a little damp. And they made their landing. Though the weather was rough, they made it. They had to leap from the boat to the shore, and Cesaire's feet were the first feet to touch the soil. And as soon as her feet touched this land, 3 lakes burst forth, welcoming her, acknowledging that this was the right person, this woman, the true first Irish woman. Although they didn't call the land Ireland then, they wouldn't for a while, but still it was the same land. Doesn't matter so much what they called it. Now with 3 lakes and an untouched land to spread out into, they spread. They followed a river all the way up to its source. And then Cesaire divided her people into 3 groups. Her father, Bith, went with 1. Her brother, Ladra, Well, he went with another, and she took Fintan with the third. Now, along the voyage, bonds had been made. People had fallen in love, as people do. And Bith had married a woman named Banwa, and Ladra had married a woman named Alva, and Kesser married actually the only man she wasn't related to, who was Fintan. But in those days, there was a bit of a tradition. You see, men didn't have control over the women's sexuality, but they were a bit wary of it. They reckoned that you had to keep women happy, keep them satisfied, and everything would be okay. But there were quite a lot of women. There were only 3 men, and Bith was getting a little bit long in the tooth. And so he found the demands of a group of 16 women to be a little bit more than his heart could take. And the first death on this island was a death of exhaustion. Poor Bith could not keep up. So the groups came together again, and they divided in 2. And Ladra took this group. Ladra the pilot, now with 25 women to satisfy as well as his own wife to pay special attention to, Ladra found himself growing wearier and weaker as time went on. You see, in that rough landing, Ladra had taken a wound in his thigh from a broken oar, and he'd never quite recovered. And so, in time, he too succumbed to his exhaustion. And then there was only one man left, Kesser's own husband, Fintan. And the group of them came together, 50 women and 1 man. Now, there is a strange thing that happens when one man is in company with a large number of women. And it only happens rarely. If that man is a man who does not try to control and does not try to dominate and does not try to exert his will, but sees those women as equal to himself, there's a strange magic loosed into the air. And Fintan and the 50 women of Ireland, led by his wife Kesser, they created something new. They created reality out of their dreams. And when the flood came to Ireland, as they say it came some time after that, the waters rose up around the land, but the people there, they shape-shifted. Fintan himself became a salmon, and of the others we do not know what happened. There are those who say they died out, the people of Cesaire. The women alone could not survive, but the strange thing is, the next time people came to Ireland, there were people there. Shapeshifters, strange and beautiful, magical and dangerous. And there was Fintan, changed from salmon to hawk to deer, who lived for 5,500 years, who saw all of the comings of the people to Ireland, saw them come, saw them share their culture, their ways, their beliefs, saw it all become part of the land, as the land took them all in and remembered. Thank you so much for inviting us to be a part of this event. We are really grateful. and we hope you enjoyed our story.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was Candlelit Tales, and if you enjoyed their story, they do live shows, they do recorded shows that you can look up, and thank you so much for telling that story. Actually, the first time I ever came across that story, it was told by Saoirse at a Her Story event, and I thought that it might be a nice story to share on this evening. We have another presentation from another of the community health ambassadors, and after that there will be a short Q&A session. So if anyone has a question, you can either type it into the chat box, or there's a little raise hand reaction signal. If you'd like to speak it, if you'd like it to be read out but not speak it yourself, you can type it into the chat box and I'll read it. But now I'd like to welcome our second community health ambassador, Cynthia Jerry. And yes, I see you there, and I will hand the floor to you.
Hello, hi, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, as you heard, my name is Cynthia Karanja. I recently completed my law degree at LYT, and I'm currently volunteering as a community health ambassador at AkiDwA. And the reason as to why I volunteered was because I believe that we as young people should be at the front line fighting against FGM. And this is because we are the future. And therefore, if we want to see this crisis come to an end, we must be at the front line as young people. And so today I'm going to talk about why young people should be involved with this movement and why it's important for young people to fight against FGM. I did research and I found that FGM, as we all know, affects mostly girls, and it's mostly young girls between infancy and adolescence stage ages, and it mostly affects 3 million girls annually. So the numbers are really high, and I believe that because it is affecting us as young people, we should be at the front line fighting against it. And how the question can be, how can we end this crisis? I believe that we as young people can use the power of social media. Currently, we're all seated right now in our homes, in different countries, different parts of Ireland, yet we are together in this meeting. So it just shows that social media has great power to spread information and make people aware of this crisis. So I believe that we should use the power of social media to create awareness. Another way we can be part of ending this crisis is by discussing with our friends on the issues related to FGM. We shouldn't feel ashamed to discuss such issues. So I believe that we as young people should take part in discussions with our friends about FGM so that we can create awareness. Because I recently spoke to a friend and I was telling her about FGM and she was like, what's FGM? So it just shows that there's many people out there who don't know about this crisis yet we're in the 21st century. In order for us to end this crisis, I believe that it's important for us to communicate with people and create awareness. And once awareness is created, then ignorance comes to an end. Albert Einstein once said that the world is a dangerous place to live. And it's not dangerous because of the evil people, but because of the people who do not do anything about it. So if we sit back and not do anything about a crisis, then it never comes to an end. But when we stand and create awareness and end ignorance, then we can make a difference. And another way I believe we can create awareness is by staying vigilant, always being alert of our surroundings, of the people around us, young people, young children, because if we keep an open eye and watch what is happening around us, we are able to see warning signs or signs that, oh, this young girl or this child or my neighbor's daughter might go through FGM. And by doing that, then we are able to end this crisis. Now, there have been various organizations and governments that have come up with ways of trying to eradicate this crisis, and some of those under human rights, and some of the governments, for example, in EU, European countries, there's countries which have come together and criminalized FGM. We also have a law which fights against cross-border FGM. Now, cross-border FGM is when, because FGM is illegal in a country, people tend to travel to a country where it is not illegal, and then they practice FGM. That can be called cross border FGM. Now, that has been recognized as a crisis. So therefore, some countries, for example, Kenya, Uganda, Guinea-Bissau, have come up with laws against cross-border FGM. And also the EU legislation has also incorporated this law against cross-border FGM. And as I said, we also have organizations such as World Health Organization, um, International Convention of Economical and Social Cultural Rights, who have come up with laws that also create rights for women in order to end discrimination against women, and also end FGM. Upon research, I found that under the right to health, the World Health Organization and the International Convention Economical, Social, and Cultural Rights have recognized that the rights to all human beings to be the highest, to be attained in the highest way possible can only be done so if people are not only physically healthy, but they are also mentally and mentally, their mental health as well as their social well-being is catered for. So in order for a person, an individual, or in order for any woman or girl to be termed as a fully healthy person, it not only caters to their physical health, like or in terms of medical health, but also their mental well-being as well. So therefore, we can see that countries have brought in initiatives where they can fight against FGM, and also organizations that have created awareness. But that's not enough to end this, and they can't be able to control or end this. So we as members of the society and as a community, it's very important for us to come together and create awareness and share the information. And I'm really happy that we, as the people who have participated here, have come for this meeting, because we are able to share all this information with each other and learn from one another. And through this learning, I believe that even after we are done here, we should take the next step and maybe discuss what we discussed here with our friends and also family, so that we can continue creating awareness. And probably if we keep doing this, maybe in the next, I don't know, 10 years, 30 years, FGM will be part of history. And I hope that the next generation that comes after us will be able to stand and say that they live in a world that is free from FGM. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, and congratulations as well on your degree.
Thank you.
What do you think that someone who maybe would be nervous about talking about FGM with their friends, or might be hesitant to start this conversation, like what if they really want to, but they just nervous about getting over that initial raising the questions or raising the topic, what would the CHAs recommend to that person?
Yeah, maybe as we wait for the CHAs to think of something, maybe I can give a suggestion on what someone who is nervous about talking about FGM can do. And as I say this, I am conscious of the fact that FGM is a very, very private issue, not very private, but hidden issue. And the reason why it's hidden is because of the part of the body which it affects, and that's a woman's genitalia, which is a body, a part of the body most people do not like talking about a lot. And even in hospitals, like what happens when a woman goes there, she's told maybe to do this, maybe even in a gynecological setting. Like it's quite, most people may not find it comfortable. So what I will say is that it will depend. It will depend on the situation. For example, as Rodrigue said when he was speaking, when we are working with practicing communities, we like using tools. And Rodrigue named like one of the tools is a body map, which makes it a bit easier to broach about the topic of FGM, because as Rodrigue said, we draw a map of a person's body, a woman of course, and we name all the body parts, and then we discuss the importance of those body parts, and then we ask about their feelings. If any body part, even an ear or an eye or a nose or a heart was removed, and then we ask them how they'd feel if their genitalia was cut, and then they start talking. And so it's about also like conversation starters, like just like when you are eating food, sometimes you need a starter for your meal as part of your meal. So even with conversations, sometimes and especially difficult conversations, we use starters. So sometimes it's also up to somebody. If you're doing someone who is finding it difficult to talk, it's also good to look at the context and then find a way of broaching the subject, of approaching it. And even sometimes you can like, but it's good to be contextual all the time. Thank you very much. Maybe Cynthia or Rodrigue can come in.
For me, I feel like it's best when you check your setting, your environment in which you're in, because sometimes it becomes more uncomfortable if, let's say, you decide to talk about it like in the middle of the street. That's really uncomfortable. But then if you're like in a setting with your friend where you're just relaxed, seated in the living room or seated somewhere, just having a casual chat, then you can gently, as Caroline said, create like an awareness, like alert the person, oh, I'm about to introduce you to a topic that's kind of sensitive, so that the person is actually mentally prepared, instead of just shoving it there and then the person's like, oh. So you gently ease the person into the topic, and then slowly you can start by probably defining what FGM is and what people go through. And also if you have like few stories which you've had or movies, I remember last year I went to the cinema with a friend to watch a movie about a girl from Somalia. I forgot the name, but it was about FGM. And then after the movie, we went home and we're having a discussion with other friends and about the movie and what we picked from the movie. And one girl actually opened up and said, oh, I also went through that. And, we eased into the discussion and we created awareness. Some of them didn't know what FGM was. So yeah, such things really help and make it easier.
Hello? Can I add? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Speak, please.
So, is Rodrigue here? So during, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Just in my experience as a facilitator, during my session with participants, you will notice that somebody is quiet, he doesn't want to talk. But when the time for break, you will approach the person, talking with him, and he will ask you many questions or come out with some emotion or what. When we are coming back from the break, you will ask the person, can you tell me what the one you told me there? Can I speak to the people? Or you can ask him, can I speak to everyone what you tell me there? And now you can explain to others and bring the issues of FGM and talk about it. So is the tools how to bring it, like in our community, like I say, is like a taboo. Sometimes they would say haram, haram, haram. We noticed this with the Muslim community. Sorry to say that. They say is haram, is haram. But to bring that issues, use the tools, back road, and come with the word of FGM. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for your answers. We have two more questions in the chat box. One is from Alim. Sorry, I'm Liam Kyo, who's undertaking a PhD research project and has just asked if they will be able to talk to or interview any of the participants, and they've put their email address there as well. We also have a question from Ku, and he asks, are there any common pitfalls when people try to discuss FGM that should be avoided?
I think I'll come in. Yeah, I'll answer that. And one of the pitfalls is like when the topic of FGM is used to do what I like calling othering people. For example, by othering is a lot of people say like that's an African problem. That is othering. When we talk about it like that, that's a huge pitfall. And actually, like it's that because some people we've seen that happening, and it's that so like that is for me, that is one of the big ones, and or the biggest one. And then there are also myths around FGM as something which is done by primitive people, whatever. No, like also because like this session is too short, like to look at to look at all those pitfalls, and especially the myths which AkiDwA has been trying a lot to debunk. What you can do is, like, when we leave this session tonight, to go and look at how we can debunk the myths around FGM. And one of them is like looking at FGM as a practice which is backwards for primitive people, because when we look at it like that, we miss on opportunities to protect children. And because because there's a particular person we are looking out at, we are looking for, and then you're like, yes, that is the profile we have already profiled in our minds, and so it's that person. She looks like this, or he looks like this. The child must look like this, and so that's a child who is going to be subjected to FGM. But then you find that actually that's not true. Sometimes you that is actually may be very far from the truth. And then actually FGM is happening in places and in spaces where even you don't expect. And so when we think like that, and it means that it will thrive right under your nose. And so, like, to me, like, there are many, there are several, but those are the big ones I can think of right now. Maybe if Rodrigo, Cynthia can think of another one, maybe they can bring it. Thank you, Emily. Yep. Rodrigue, Cynthia.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm there.
And it's okay if there's nothing to add.
Yeah, I think it's okay. It's okay.
Okay, so you can continue, Emily.
Oh yeah, sorry. As you said, yeah, it's true. It's not just an African thing, or an Asian thing or a Middle Eastern thing. And as it was said earlier, it's also happening here in Ireland. People are now moving, it's an open world. So it's happening everywhere. People are also picking up from other people's cultures and traditions. So it's actually affecting everyone. And so, yeah, we shouldn't label it as a problem for one specific group or certain people. The same way people who are coming out and they are fighting for other people's rights are saying, oh, no racism. And people came together as brothers and sisters and fought against that. That is the same attitude I believe we should also have when we're discussing about FGM and fighting against FGM. That it's not just their problem, but it is our problem, all of us as a community. Yeah.
I'd just like to add to it not just being a problem located with one particular thing. Dr. Kellogg, the American guy who came up with cornflakes, was a proponent of a form of FGM. So it is a thing that is practiced all over. It's not just rooted in one particular culture. We have another question from Roisin, who is wondering, is there anything else we can do to stop FGM as well as raising awareness?
That's another good question. Thank you, Roshin. Thank you, Emily, for. Now, there's so much you can do. And actually, this is an appeal I am going to make to the young people who are here. Earlier, we were talking, I said to Cynthia. And one thing we can do is to come up with more innovative ways. We know that you, Emily, you have gone over and beyond in pushing this issue. So, because even like even what we are doing here tonight is one of the innovative ways of speaking about FGM. So let's go out there and come up with more innovative ways. Get on talking about FGM, more innovative ways of getting the word out there, so that when we have events like this, we can have as many people as possible coming to listen to what we are saying. And yeah, like for me, like that is a huge one, so that you don't remain same, because I feel like this space is very nice tonight, because we are pushing to what we normally don't, because we are talking to people, affected communities, whatnot. But today we are talking, it's young people who are leading this, and this is very good. So actually, I better keep quiet. Thank you.
Yes, if I can add, now we are living in a world where social media have a huge power when we compare with our ancestor. They was using mouth to mouth, but today with social media, Twitter, everything, we can raise awareness. We can work together how we can stop or end FGM. So it's a problem to work together. The service provider, like in Ireland, there is FGM going undergo. But if immigration in the airport, school, hospital, they are together. They are working together. Like now during the summer, people will go for holiday. Family, they are traveling. And most of them, those believe in their culture, they are going with their children back home for FGM. They will tell you here is our culture. But when they are coming back with their girls, in airport, they can ask small question, or in the school, or when the child is sick in the hospital. So the service provider, hospital, Gadi, immigration can work together to end FGM. Thank you.
As I said earlier, we can come up with innovative ways to share the information. Like I said, I went to the cinema with a friend and we watched the movie. Once I remember, I'll try and check for the name and then I'll write in the chat box that people can know the name of the movie. But yeah, it's about FGM and it's very informative. So then, so you can maybe bring people and be like, oh, let's have a movie night, and then you watch the movie. So that's an innovative and smart way of teaching people. I remember when I was back in Kenya in school, people would come and we would do plays, small plays. So then you engage the children. So we would be told, oh, you act as a mother, you act as a father, and this is the child. And then you act it out. And then at the end of it all, you're told the effects of FGM, or you act it out. So that's another innovative way of, spreading the information to young people, because it's also really hard to pass information through young people because you need to make sure that they're interested. So through plays and through movies, also songs, those were ways that when I was in school, we were taught about FGM, and I believe we can also incorporate in spreading the information. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. And awareness, while it might not seem doing it, it's all information and raising awareness, raising information, providing information, and of course supporting the wonderful people like AkiDwA, like Rodrigue and Cynthia and Caroline, which I have a question for you. You're dealing with a very sensitive, a very often upsetting issue. How do you make sure that you yourselves are protected when dealing with something that is so raw?
Yeah, that is another very, very good question, Emily. Um, that one, every year we make sure that we take our SCHAs through some form of training. The new cohort, which Cynthia is part of, has not gone through that training. In the last one, which Rodrigue was obviously part of, and other trainings which Rodrigue and some people from AkiDwA have been part of, we always emphasize on self-care. And self-care is at very many levels. There's that part of self-care whereby you feel that now things have really got into you, and what you need to do maybe is just maybe to take a few hours from work, and maybe you lie down in a dark room and maybe do some yoga, whatever, and maybe somehow you feel better and you're able to function socially, to regain what you like calling social functioning. But sometimes that may not be enough. That may not be enough. So like what we are doing now, we want we take some people who are in the front line for some form of counseling, so that they can, if the issues are, when the issues become too much, we like people accessing counseling so that they can be helped further. Because as I always tell people sometimes, and also like something, that work is really getting to you when you take it home. I know sometimes it's hard to detach like work and the home, and especially during these times of COVID, where maybe there are no boundaries, people are working from home and you're just moving maybe from one issue to another. You're in the house, you're cooking, and then you're working, and then you're doing this, you're doing that. But when you see that a big chunk of your work is troubling you, and even you cannot sleep, that's a sign that you need to do something about helping, going for some extra supports. And even the same case applies to you, Emily. And even maybe something than just going for a walk, going for a coffee and talking, and even maybe something than just not talking about it at all, not about it. Just something maybe talking about it will help. For some people, different things will help. Maybe talking about it will help, not talking about it will help, and doing different things. But self-care is key, and we've said that there are so many forms of self-care. And at the extreme end, we have counseling for people who are dealing with very delicate people who are vulnerable, and also counseling for the vulnerable people, counseling for people who are in touch with them. That is something which we really emphasize on. Thank you for that very, very good and important question, Emily. And also, when we talk about culturally appropriate, I also need to include culturally appropriate counseling. And so, like what AkiDwA has done, because Emily, you had the Go Fad, whatever. We've connected with the Black therapists of Ireland, because for an issue to be dealt with again, it's good to go to a counselor or a therapist who understands the culture. There'll be more empathy. A person will feel best understood. Because now, when you go to a counselor and that person even does not know the culture, you'll have to go maybe to do some research, and that it will not come naturally for that person. And even the person who is being helped will also feel that this is not, we are not connecting. Yet someone is supposed to connect in a certain way, in a helpful connection between the counselor and the client. So, like, we have also identified those culturally appropriate interventions for the women, and also for people working who are in the front line working with vulnerable women and girls. Thank you.
I think Caroline say everything. No more to add. We take care of our mental health because we are dealing with GM, these issues, because sometimes you will see somebody crying during our session, and it's not easy for us as an ambassador to keep quiet. So every time we have training on mental health and counseling. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Emily. I think that's all for that.
Yeah, I think that's there are no Cynthia has put the name of that film into the chat box if anyone is interested. But I think that's all the questions, unless anyone has a final question. And I will hand over to Caroline for the closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emily, and thank you everyone for attending, and thank you, Alana, for working around the clock and burning the midnight oil to make this possible. And so we are so grateful that you are able to come this evening for this event. And we know that we have learned a lot, and also, like, even this is very, very unique, having the storytelling, because as I said a few minutes ago, that it's quite innovative. We've not done this before, and I hope that you can keep on doing more of this, pushing the boat out, and making sure we have more events whereby we are using methods which we normally would not we normally would not exploit or think of. And it's thanks to having young people like Emily, Alana, and others that such avenues have become possible to exploit. And sorry to use that word. And also, like, even the power of the social media, which Cynthia mentioned. It's in your hands, you young people. It's in your hands, you young people, to make sure that, because, like, is it millennials? Although I think, like, people like Emily and Alana are younger than millennials. And so, like, to use, because now you have the technology and the the technology on your hands. Use it to spread the word, to take the word out there about the dangers of FGM and why it should be stopped. And also even those other avenues for fundraising, so that organizations, especially AkiDwA, can be able to do the work which they know how to do very well, which is the work of ending FGM in Ireland. And because, as you know, for those who are new here and they don't know, it's AkiDwA which brought FGM here in Ireland 20 years ago. Nobody knew, not many people knew about it. Maybe there were some people who are working in international development, but those who are working out there. But it is AkiDwA which said FGM is happening here, because we're in the front line dealing with women and talking to them who are going through some very, very difficult experiences out of their own FGM FGM status. And why am I calling it status? Because it happens in many ways, in 4 ways, which I'll not go into, but you can Google that. So AkiDwA was in touch with these women coming to the office. Sometimes Saloma would meet with them before the office was started, and they'd tell us some very, very, very difficult things. On top of being very isolated, facing racism in Ala, because at that time migration was not as it is today. And then AkiDwA came into being, and then the issue of FGM, AkiDwA decided to tackle it head on. And so at any given time, we are looking for people who can work with us, to support the women and the girls, and also to support us, because as Emily, that question you asked also once the aid about how we look after ourselves. Like now this evening, I seriously, to be honest, I'm feeling quite warm to see the support of young people and young people and coming up with these nice stories to talk differently about FGM. So I hope and pray that you'll be able to talk about this more. And seriously, as I've said, I cannot thank you enough, Emily, and everybody who worked, and even the performers who are here, the storytellers. Thank you so much, and I hope that you can come again. And I also hope that maybe very soon, when things open up, we'll be able to meet face to face. Because one thing which is central to AkiDwA's event is that we make something to eat for people, even it's just a drink, a cup of tea or coffee and a sandwich, and then as we eat that, we are chatting. That is all ever so central, because we like chatting and knowing people more intimately than just seeing them performing and then they go. No, we don't do that. And that's why you see, like, the people we have known, they always remain on our side, and they remain with us, because we not only keep friends, but we not only make friends, but we know how to keep our friends. And so with those few words, seriously feel touched, feel thanked, and know that you really, really do appreciate. And do not hesitate to knock on our door, even just to pick the phone and call us and ask us how we are doing. And yeah, thank you so much, and have a lovely, lovely evening.
Thank you again so much to Caroline, to Rodrigue, to Saoirse, to Candlelit Tales, to Cynthia, to AkiDwA, and to everyone who has joined and listened. And just to echo Caroline's, I hope you all have a lovely evening, and thank you.